Hi, I'm Matt Nesto, the editor-in-chief at payments.com, joined today by Dylan Lowry. He's the general counsel at NIAM, joining us from San Francisco. Great to see you, Dylan.
Great to be here. Thank you.
So we are on the ever-changing and evolving theme of the regulatory landscape as it affects the payments business. Why don't you give me an overview? Like, what's your front burner issue or issues right now that you feel are kind of emerging and need to most be watched?
Yeah, I think like the main issue for us is just navigating the multiple fronts, right, upon which payments regulation is changing. So, NIAM is operating in we're licensed in 11 countries. One of those countries we then passport into the rest of Europe. We're looking at 40 countries that all have their own, considerations around how they're thinking about developing technology in payments, how they're thinking about security in payments, how they're thinking about consumer protection and other issues like that. And so really, the big challenge, I think, for global platforms like NIAM is how you just sort of track and manage that broad geographic complexity in an area that is continuing to evolve at a rapid clip.
I'm loath to make any analogies to war, but it's one of the things of a world war, global war, is battles on many fronts. Is that's in some ways there's similarities, but in some ways every fight is different, I would gather.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, every country has its own particular take on how they want to tackle payments, and that's what makes it one of these really challenging areas around global payments. Is you can't take a one-size-fits-all approach to how you tackle particular regulatory issues. You need to go country by country. You need to be thinking about it locally. You need to have relationships with local regulators, and you really need to be thinking about this as a global problem, but with local solutions.
Are there like macro headings though that you can lump these things into, like privacy, security, things like that? Like what are like your big three? And I hate to pin you down on the spot
sure.
this, but
yeah. So privacy and security obviously are continuing to be a topical one, and I think will continue to be topical for a long time to come, together with data localization considerations in many countries who are expecting to have a high degree of control over payments data and sort of taking a global approach with respect to where data is used and located is becoming more challenging. I think the other large one is around the relationship between fintech and established technology, right? And how regulators are looking to regulate the way in which fintech operates, and potentially starting to look at fintech, given it's a more mature industry, as does it need to be regulated in a manner that's more analogous to banks, right? And sort of the challenge there of the increasing level of scrutiny that's being placed upon fintech.
I mean, constant global regulatory friction seems like a great job security for you, which is wonderful. What for clients of NIAM though, what do you suggest businesses do that are dealing with global payments to navigate this quagmire of regulatory friction?
Yeah. So good question. I think the one obvious answer from our perspective is leverage experts like NIAM, who have built a global regulatory platform that has been designed to navigate these global regulatory complexities. Ideally, businesses, payment services providers should be abstracting that complexity as much as possible for them, providing the resources and support they need, and allowing the business to focus on doing their business. They shouldn't need to worry about how do I solve for receiving or making payments in country X. What are the requirements for operating a marketplace in country Y? These should be things that they can solve by using the right platform that's able to abstract that complexity for them and to provide them with the support that they need where they need it.
So, I mean, you came from Stripe and Barclays, and you also worked in the legal sector. So to talk to me about this sort of outsourcing versus the tendency for some firms, maybe smaller ones, to in-house solutions, especially as you add markets and new, geographies to a growing business.
Yeah, look, I think that's right, and I wouldn't say it's limited to large or small businesses. There's plenty in both camps that potentially do it themselves. I think navigating one country. Let's say you start in the US, maybe you can wrap your arms around how do I operate a regulated service in the US myself without needing to leverage a platform to do it for me. That may be doable, but particularly as you grow globally, that becomes exponentially harder, as we've sort of talked about, in terms of managing that overall network, having to have the regulatory licenses, relationships, et cetera, in multiple countries. It just becomes harder and harder to manage. And so the incremental cost of managing that yourself just continues to go up. And so for a lot of companies, both in terms of defraying that cost, but also increasing their speed to market, increasing their global reach, partnering with a platform like Neum makes a lot of sense in terms of solving for that challenge.
Let's talk about biometrics. I mean, we've been writing a lot about that. We've had a recent study that had showed pretty broad-based consumer embrace of that technology as a means of authentication. What are the regulatory issues surrounding biometrics? Consumers like it. Businesses seem to, I don't know, some do it, some don't. Some glaringly don't. What are you seeing out there on the reg front?
Yeah, so look, I think I personally, I love it. I use it. I think it's
Right.
great technology. But I certainly have my own concerns about my own data security, right? And so I think there's not a silver bullet here for businesses in terms of how to address this concern. I think unfortunately we're probably going to continue to see data breaches. I certainly receive data breach notifications in respect to my own data on a disconcertingly regular basis.
Right.
And so I think that the key things here are, for each business to develop its own data security and privacy posture, right? Like developing your own transparent posture around how you're collecting data, how you're using data, how you're securing that data, and actually making sure that you are living up to what you're saying there is going to be really important, in addition to industry responses to data security. But it's going to be important for companies to continue to have their own posture there. And then I think finally, continuing to support well-designed regulation that is appropriate and responsive to the need of protecting people's data. It's broadly good for the industry. It's just a matter of making sure that it's tailored and that companies are able to comply effectively with it.
Is there a geography, a hotspot in the world where you feel like that's taking the majority or a disproportionate amount of your time and mental bandwidth?
With respect to data security and privacy?
Oh, well, that and more broadly, just to emerging or revolving regulatory obstacles.
I mean, Europe has been the high watermark for a long time with respect to, sort of both general payments regulatory issues and data security and privacy. And so, Europe is one of the more involved markets to navigate. The upshot of Europe, though, right, is that they've done a good job of conforming a lot of the regulations across the European bloc, which makes it, high leverage to work towards European regulation, because you can solve for a lot of countries at once. I think on the flip side, then looking at APAC and LATAM, there you have, broadly very disparate regulatory regimes, again, that we sort of talked about at the start, that really just requires a heavy lift in every country that you go into to understand the local regulatory regime, understand what the regulatory imperatives are, and then create a tailored response to those regulations.
What are your thoughts? We wrote a story recently about the change or the impending change of PMs in the UK. So here you have a double whammy, right? You've got the post-Brexit ex-EU kind of thing, and now you got another thing to deal with, and now you've got a new administration presumably coming on board shortly. And so just your thoughts on that sort of upheaval.
Yeah, I think The UK, yes, there's been a lot of change there in terms of Brexit, and you know, there's obviously political change afoot there at the moment. I think they've done a very good job of maintaining, you know, a balanced and predictable keel in the way that they're operating. Notwithstanding, you know, there's a lot of strong institutions in the UK like the FCA who have significant experience dealing with a large payments, technology, banking sector. And I think they've done a good job of keeping consistency and predictability, you know, notwithstanding the changes that have occurred there.
So I jokingly referred to your job security, but our survey showed corporate compliance officers, 80% of them equally secure in the fact that their workload will be higher in the coming months, and quarters, and years. You know, what is your message to those people? You know, at this time, that's just so interesting on so many levels. And I guess just on a macro basis, it's just straining and pushing businesses and pushing the need for efficiency and speed in all new ways.
Yeah, look, I think that's right. I think it's a really exciting time to be in regulatory and compliance areas in the payments landscape. There's a lot of change. There's a real demand for in particular, you know, technology solutions to adapt to the new global landscape, to find ways to reduce this friction that we've been talking about, to find ways to really abstract that complexity for businesses who are looking to you know, leverage global payment networks. You know, it's a great and exciting time to be in the space.
Awesome. Well, you got plenty to do. We'll let you go. Dylan Lowry, thanks for coming on Payments. Appreciate it. General Counsel at NEOM.
Thanks very much.